this one is, it's terrifying and funny at the same time. The post-millennial. Pornhub pulls out of Virginia over age verification law.
Whoa.
What? Wait, what? Are you...
Nice
hold
job.
on there a minute. They blocked users in Virginia from accessing the site in reaction to the state's new age verification law. According to 8 News, the new law, which takes effect July 1st, would require porn websites to verify users in the state are at least 18 before they can access adult content. So instead of, verifying age, they were just like, well, then you don't get any porn.
They did the same thing in Utah in early May.
They are so desperate to show children adult images, they boycott the state when they can't.
Well, I don't think that's it. Because they don't want to deal with any of the legal ramifications and having to certify all these people, because then now they're liable if they show kids porn. So I just think that's why they do it, because the law's even in
Right.
place.
So what you're saying is Pornhub has no problem operating in the state if it means children can access their content.
Well, yeah, I mean, they want kids to access it, but they don't want to have to risk the legality.
It's too much work for Pornhub to have to make sure kids aren't using their services.
That's fair. Yeah,
Yeah.
I agree with that statement. Yes, it's too much. It's not cost beneficial for them.
In May, when they blocked Utah, because Utah made the same, you have to be able to show your driver's license or verify ID. They're like, this is crazy. Having to show your ID every time you come to Pornhub is just not going to protect children. Like, that was their actual complaint. They said that this is a ridiculous way to handle it.
So,
and
like,
won't
strip
solve
clubs
anything.
that don't check IDs?
Yeah, but Tim, we're joking about this, but the United Nations came out and saying they want to get rid of age of consent laws. So it's like they really do want to show kids adult content. And then when we talk about Pornhub, like, they say it's so crazy for a kid under 18 to look at porn, which I agree with, but like a 14-year-old can get a mastectomy. I mean, it's so weird.
Yeah.
18-year-old, 17-year-old can't get a tattoo, but they can get gender reassignment surgery.
They're chanting that they're coming for our children.
Yes.
And then when people are like, hey, did you hear what they said? They're like, no, they didn't say it. But, they do say it all the time.
We say it every year.
Yeah, it's our chant we always say.
It was just a joke.
No, we say it all the time, but this one time we actually didn't say it. We just say it all the time.
Yeah.
Another weird twist in the Pornhub thing is that Louisiana also has an age verification law, but Pornhub never blocked them and did comply.
What?
Really?
Did they?
Yeah, and I don't know why that is. They just said, okay, Louisiana.
It's because they're so backwards they wouldn't be able to prosecute it or something. Louisiana, I went to LSU. It is the wildest place. Have you guys spent any time in Louisiana? Because it was the last state to change its drinking age laws from 18 to 21. They were like the last state to get federal funding for the roads. So the roads and highways suck in New Orleans.
Good for them for holding out, though.
Yeah, that's Louisiana. It's like this thing. It's called Lagnappy. It's like a little extra. Like they have this very nice kind of party atmosphere, but because of that, the city's like run like trash, or the whole state's just not run very well.
It's crazy to me. We talked about this this past week. There are tons of things you can't do in public that you can do online in public, which makes no sense. There are tons of things we wouldn't allow someone to do at a brick and mortar establishment. We allow them to do online, which makes no sense.
I think it's because
you can't walk into an adult bookstore. You get your ID checked. You can't walk into a sex shop. You get your ID checked. Online, you can. No ID check. That's insane to me. It should be that every porn website or adult website requires registration and verification before you can use it. Sorry, that's just the way it works.
Well, there's an interesting discussion going on about Twitter in that regard, too, because you can create a Twitter account at 13, but they also allow porn on Twitter.
Yeah, which is ridiculous.
Hold on. I think Twitter, so here's the technicality. It's not so much Twitter's business. If you go out into Times Square with a big photograph of porn, you'll get arrested. So if you post porn on Twitter where children can see it,
it's illegal.
It should be the same crime. I don't understand the argument for, yes, I understand you can't play videos of porn out in the public, but I should be able to play it in the public on Twitter where children can see it. No, none of that.
What do you think the remedy for that is?
Police enforcing the law?
Well, how would they enforce that?
They would see an account post the illegal content, then subpoena the company and say, under this law, it's illegal, and a judge orders you to hand over the data of the individual. Then they would go get a warrant. Like they would go to the house and investigate, and like any other criminal case. Like, let me ask you a question. A guy wearing a ski mask is handing out porn mags to people in Times Square and holding a big. How do they stop that? They
Yeah,
go
but that's
there.
why, I mean, it's
and arrest
rampant
him.
on Twitter, though. I mean, it's like
Because-
there's a lot of replies.
But
Tim, there's
hold on.
OnlyFans girls.
Shoplifting is rampant in San Francisco because we're letting it be. Just because we never enforce the law doesn't mean we just don't do it anymore. We have to be like, yo, we got to stop it.
We need more resources for
I was gonna-
cyber crimes, though.
I was going to say,
our
do you
law
think we
enforcement is
need to
really bad.
expand cybercrime research? Because what you're saying with
Absolutely.
shoplifting, you send a police officer in person. Like, do we have a gap in law enforcement where they are
Absolutely.
not trained to adequately
not-
I'll tell
attack
you-
it's
cyber-
I'll
not,
tell
it's
you a
not, it's
personal
not, it's
story.
not that, because many of these people post their own videos to the public under their own names. It's that law enforcement and government can't keep up with technology.
Yes.
So, like, they don't have a big enough presence on Twitter to catch these
No,
things?
it's
They
that
just
if you
don't
go
know
to
how
a
to
cop
use
and
it.
say, if you go to a police officer, a police station right now, and say, there's a guy who lives a block away from here who is posting, he was showing pornographic images in public and children could see it. That cop's gonna go, whoa, okay, let's write this down. Where was it? It was on Twitter. He'll go, oh, I don't care about that.
Yeah, well,
Yes.
You're like, but
Yes.
what's the difference?
Well, and I think
Yeah, but-
I told you this before, Tim, but I had a serious stalker who was stalking me through Twitter, YouTube,
that was
harassing
me. That was me. Yeah.
No, he was not. He wasn't funny. But it was a pretty serious stalker, and the FBI ended up getting involved. And I had an agent from the cybercrimes unit who called me, and he said, "Have you tried calling Twitter and YouTube?" And I said, "With all due respect, sir, if you think I could call Twitter or YouTube, you should not be working in cybercrimes." And this was a federal agent, FBI agent who said that.
You can't take a big poster of two adults having sex and put it in your front window for everyone in the world to walk past and see. You can't do that.
Yeah, but Tim,
If you want to legalize it, by all means, go to legislature and have them all vote to make that legal.
Yeah, but my buddy Cassidy Campbell, another guy, Alex Rosen, they do these predator poaching videos, Tim, and I'm sure you've seen those, where they'll go, in some cities the cops do get involved, but they'll
Sure.
show cops a whole cachet of these are text messages. This guy thinks he's messaging a 13-year-old kid, and the cops, they have the evidence. They'll say, oh, we can't touch it. So I think it comes down to...
Yeah, back to blue, baby.
Yeah, I know. It comes down to, are they actually going to follow through?
They'll give you a ticket for having a busted headlight that you didn't know about. You're a day past your plate registration. You'll get a ticket. You'll be speeding. You'll be under the limit, but they'll pull you over and give you a speeding ticket anyway. These stories are rampant. Everybody has some ridiculous story. I knew a dude who turned right at a red light, and they mailed him a blowing a red light ticket.
Yeah, because he didn't stop long enough.
No, he did.
Oh.
They said it thought he ran the light outright.
Yeah.
They don't care. When it comes to petty crime, they'll enforce it with a hammer. When it comes to COVID restrictions, they will lock you up. Hair salon owner, right to jail. You own a cafe in Minnesota and you open up for a couple days. They hunted her down in Iowa to make sure, and this is the sheriff, to make sure she suffered. Attila's Gym, you want to open your gym so people can exercise? Because you disagree with the edict issued by the governor, the cops will show up with smiles on their faces and arrest you. But heaven forbid any one of these cops, when they're standing outside of a club that is doing a sex show that they've invited children to, the cops in Texas said, sorry, we won't do anything about that.
I think it's the difference of putting up like porn in a front window facing out onto the street and putting it on Twitter is that on Twitter it's parentally supervised. Like
What?
But
a
it's not
kid
really.
can't get internet without
That's not true.
buying a router and having or buying a phone.
That's not true at
to
all.
kind of agree with what Ian's saying, though, there is a difference between like posting a picture and then sending that posted picture directly to somebody, if that makes sense. Like,
I'm not talking about that. I'm saying if you post a tweet of porn, as many people do, I view that the exact same as taking a big sign with a porn picture and sticking it in the ground outside.
But it's
Anyone can
definitely-
see it. A
No,
kid
you need internet.
in a school library.
Well, then it's the school should be,
An argument over resources and an argument for public access.
Oh, yeah, it is.
No,
It could-
no,
yeah, it
no,
can
it
be.
isn't. No, it's not.
What? If it costs $100 to get into something, then it's not public.
Okay, a kid who doesn't have bus fare is not the issue. If you post it in public, you are granting access to public. That's the issue. Just because some kids can't get on Twitter doesn't mean it's not public. It is public.
That's the argument.
And children, it's not.
I don't know if it legally you would consider internet public.
It is.
It is.
It's literally and legally considered public. It is legally
It's like
public.
a quasi for
They've
sure. Like
they've
Google-
already ruled in courts.
If it's public, then how come a guy can shut it down?
there's
you can't
things,
shut down a public park.
Yes,
I mean,
you can.
need the government
Yeah,
to
they
do
do.
that.
So there's things
but Elon
called-
can shut down Twitter. So, how's it public?
so slow down there, Ian. First, there's things called privately owned public spaces, where in New York, for instance, that's what Occupy Wall Street was all
Zuccotti,
about.
yeah, Zuccotti Park.
And Chase Plaza and Deutsche Bank, privately owned but public, and so there were certain restrictions on what they could and couldn't do. And so once it got to a certain point of the protest, they couldn't shut it down. Chase was smart and shut down their plaza instantly before any of that could happen. Twitter is privately owned, but it's already been ruled a public space. Hence, politicians, when they tweet, they create public forums. They cannot block people. Courts have already stated that. Now, I think this...
I'm suing AOC.
Over this. Because she blocked you, and it's a public space. She doesn't have a right to do it. It is in public, period. It's not up for debate. It is. The courts have already said it. So the issue is law enforcement knows that adults are publishing images in public that children can get access to, but for some reason, they don't care. They won't go anywhere near it. Our society is in decay. Go back 30 years and watch what happens if a guy would print out a big poster with people having sex on it and stand in public in the town center waving it at people. He would bad things would happen to that guy.
The age of
and he
data,
would get arrested.
Data proliferation. We haven't been able to keep up. You can make 100 million copies of something now, but we don't have 100 million copies of the cop. We only have one cop. So you need AI. I think we need artificial intelligence to police social media.
Oh, no.
I mean, you give me a better option.
No.
I'd love to hear a better one.
That's
terrible
exactly-
at distinguishing things, right? Didn't we talk about this earlier?
It's better than no people. Like zero people is even worse than an AI.
But that's what
the
happened.
issue is not that we need a better system for it. The issue is quite simply the culture. Police will see it and go, meh.
It's like, how do you find out who did it even? Because a lot of the accounts are fake, or
So how about this?
you can't. If you sue Twitter, then you destroy Twitter.
How about this? In all instances where an individual under their given name and photograph publish it, then the investigation is quite minimal. You then go knock on their door and say, Mr. Smith, did you publish this image to your Twitter account? You did? Place your hands behind your back. You're under arrest for posting lewd images in public. Did you know that in many states, if you have a gun and that gun is in a position where a child could get access to it, that is a felony?
Yeah.
So like if it's in your room, locked in the closet, oh, hold on there a minute. It's got to be in a safe. They have these child protection laws.
What about
West Virginia? We already talked about it. Open lewdness is illegal.
What about retweeting porn? Should those people also be arrested?
That's an interesting question that will be up for.
That is kind of a gray area.
No, well, that's that requires precedent, and that's a normal process in the United States law. A police officer will say, "You published this image to your, 10,000 followers." They'll say, "No, I retweeted something that was already public." Then the argument becomes, a guy was handing out pictures of porn in public, handed you one, and you held it up in the air for everyone to
Well, this
see.
is the thing-
You
Yeah.
are now in trouble.
With like when data is leaked, like government leaks and things, and then people retweet the data, like are they committing the same felony that the person?
That's a whistleblower.
Because
But they're basically holding up the illegal.
No, because it's not illegal to share it; it's illegal to steal it. So when it comes to like the Pentagon Papers, the question is, was it illegally obtained? Well, there's whistleblower protections. The news media committed no crime by publishing that information.
Tim, I want to make a point about the culture, though, and it's like this is a more simple analogy, not just the fact that everybody's trying to basically give kids gender reassignment surgery and make everybody get an abortion, but just look at the change of our architecture from the 60s and 70s.
Brutalism.
I mean,
I hate it.
It's this weird postmodern era of just crap. Like even the newest baseball stadium in Texas, we had the ballpark in Arlington built in like '99. It's just beautiful, grandiose, epic, ballpark. The newest one they built, I forget, it's called Globe Life, or I forget what it's even called. And it looks like a Costco. I'm just saying, in the past 20 years, we've gone down when it comes to architecture. Just imagine
Brutalism.
Yeah.
Everything's a white box.
I
and that's
think
crap. That's terrible
need
for
better-
society.
There's no art. But you know what it is? I was talking to Seamus about it. He was saying that before the internet and print, this was the art medium. To see the great works was the buildings we would produce. Then as we move into newspaper and radio, art and creativity moved into those spaces, buildings started becoming less and less relevant in the discussion.
I think that's part of it. I think it's also there's a lot of planned obsolescence that goes into that.
Yeah, they want
I
stuff
just
to
feel like
fail.
it's like to make everyone feel like there's no regional significance, right? Like if you're in New York City, you can tell by the buildings, and they're supposed to be different than the buildings that are in San Francisco, which are supposed to be different than the buildings that you might find in like a major city in Montana. Whereas now you get major corporations that put up the same blank building everywhere. So there's no sense of identity, and therefore you can't cultivate any sort of regional pride.
And it's like when people build new houses, there's always problems, but houses built in like the 70s and 60s it just last the test of time, it seems like. So there's something, there's like a degradation of the carpenters. Like look at this, the gargoyles and stuff outside of these buildings in New York City. They can't even repair them. We don't even have the same people, the stonemasons, that can even do that
Plastering,
Let me-
which
let
used
me-
to be like the big thing. There are very few true plastering crews left.
On the issue of porn, let me give you guys a very simple scenario. If you want to post it to your Twitter account, your account has to be age verification locked. That's it. So you will make a post, and if you publish it to people, now you're in trouble. If open to the public for children. If you want to do adult content to make it safe and legal, you put a age restriction filter on it. And then if a kid comes across it, they can't access it. And the only people who can are those who verify their accounts on Twitter. I'll give you a real world example. You walk into a 7-Eleven back when I was a kid, and there were some magazines. But those magazines were in black plastic. You could not see the magazine. You could see the top that it would say the name Hustler or Playboy, but you'd like, oh man, you couldn't see it. And kids weren't able to buy it. They'd be like, I can't sell you that. So you couldn't actually open it up. It was wrapped. You couldn't see. You could only see it was a product. So it was in public, but not displaying anything for kids to see.
What about if someone's sitting on a park bench with a Playboy reading it, and there's a kid like 100 feet away walking by?
Typically then a cop will be like, hey buddy, come on, there are kids around here, put that away.
But if the kid walks up behind the guy and looks at the magazine over his shoulder,
then typically someone will say, hey buddy, put that thing away.
and
Kids can see
ultimately
it.
the kid would be the one that made the mistake in that.
Now you're talking about simple judicial discretion.
I guess the question is it illegal to have a Playboy open in a public park?
That the question of legality is the interpretation of the judge. A cop could say disorderly conduct for anything you do. You can fart in public and a cop can be like, that's disorderly, you're under arrest, and tell it to a judge. The judge will then determine whether or not you actually violated that statute.
I know. I got a felony for farting in public. So
It was gross
it
fart.
was really bad.
Yeah.
A lot of poop in that fart.
Oh, one of those.
Yeah, it was a really bad situation.
Like a horizontal fire.
Yeah, I went to
know
jail
those.
for a long time. I
It's a
just got
loud
out.
burst.
No, but I don't know.
Just got out.
When it comes to the porn stuff on the internet, I think that's kind of the most cancerous thing of the reason why kids are so sexualized, and I think that's why we have a lot of this
And depressed?
Well, not just the depression, but this sexual confusion, because you look at like a trans person, you might be attracted to the boobs, but then you see a penis because they go to a drag queen story time at a young age. So I'm just saying we're over sexualizing our children, and that's having it's having an effect that we can't quantify or whatever. We can't figure out what the hell that's going to equal because we don't have any past generations that were exposed to all this pornography.
We kind of do. It's creating sexual dysfunction. We're seeing that erectile dysfunction is skyrocketing among young men.
And testosterone's way down.
That could be plastics. I think that's probably our diet and stuff like that. But kids, human beings were never meant to be exposed to this level of information, period. Okay, but I understand information access is just a thing that we're going to have to learn to adapt with. Children being able to get instant access to porn on Twitter, that's a problem.
Mm-hmm. That was an oversight of the 2000 that people didn't realize when the internet arrived, that they should be protecting kids' brains from it.
Well,
for some reason.
Ted Bundy said they should. Ted Bundy said if you don't want your kids to end up like me, keep them away from porn.
I think the way Twitter should work is the moment your account posts porn available to the public, you get an instant age verification.
That's what I'm talking about AI, that you would use AI for something like that. But it could fail. But I think you could use AI to do that, because if a person's like, oops, I forgot, you don't want to throw them in prison for that necessarily.
I forgot what?
I forgot to post 18 age verification on mine, and you're like, maybe
whoops,
they
I accidentally
did.
threw a Playboy in front of a bunch of kids. Like, what?
Like, that's when you bring up like wanting to read a pornographic magazine in a park. For me, it's like, but why do you want to? If you're going to a park where presumably are children, whoever, like,
They should be
why?
private.
Why are you doing
That's
that?
not a-
Yeah.
Fresh air.
But the
That's
point I was
sunlight in
making
your
earlier
eyes.
is there is a reasonableness to enforcing the law that is upon the discretion of the officer. It is unreasonable, in my opinion, that officers do not arrest the people who are engaging in these crimes. Completely unreasonable. It is unreasonable, in my opinion. So if you get pulled over and it's an honest mistake and you weren't speeding that much, the reasonable thing to do is a warning. And cops do that a lot. That's police discretion, and many officers do a good job. I have had some negative encounters with police officers, as most people have, where one time I was not speeding, I got a ticket, cop told me to basically screw myself, and that got my license suspended. That bothers me. It bothers me that kind of thing can exist, where a cop can screw your life up through no fault of your own, but we can't get him to arrest people who are exposing children to adult sex shows? Like, that's I recognize pencils have erasers, bad cops exist, and these things happens. It's under the water under the bridge. I'm like, okay, these are things that are part of the system. But why then do we struggle to stop this?
Because they are focused primarily on immediate public safety. So like driving is a big part of it. They don't want a car to hit a human and the human die. Like the kids getting sexualized doesn't have like an immediate thing you notice. Like there's no immediate change in their physical health when it happens. So the cop doesn't really have like a thing to stop right away. I mean, when you think about it and you realize what's happening, then you can start to make the argument that we need to do some preventative measures. But they're more interested in just like stopping violence.
I just think our culture is shattered. I think that the internet has ripped it to shreds. There's no more unified sense of morality. And now among cops, for the most part, they're just like, I want to keep my head down and stay out of it. So in Texas, famously, you had a drag show with kids and there were sexualized things going on in there. And the cops were like, I ain't doing anything about this. And it's just like, yo, we could just Google the law and show you it's illegal. And the cop's like, don't look at me. I'm not getting involved. Thanks for watching this clip from the Timcast IRL podcast. Hang out with us live Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. and become a member over at timcast.com for uncensored, members-only shows exclusive. Thanks for hanging out, and we'll see you all next time.